Hi there, in this video you will see how to integrate a set of advanced 3D AI tools into a real Godot project. The spotlight is on Deemos, currently one of the most capable tools out there. It makes creating high quality 3D content like what you're seeing here fast and efficient. This isn't some toy or limited tool, it's built for real production use, so let's get started. So to start off with all this, I will just create a brand new Godot project. So already here Deemos has lots of tools, as I've mentioned. It has, for example, tools to create your own chat avatar, okay, as things as you are seeing over here. You have rolling, which is kind of like the main thing that we're gonna be covering in this course, in which you can indeed generate things with just text. You also have Omnicraft with lots of tools that you can use in the 3D environment. So for example, texture generators, you also have mesh editor, so you have like lots of things, but we are gonna start off with maybe the best one, or the one that you're gonna be probably using the most, which is rolling itself. So I don't want to get too technical, but basically here with providing an image or a text prompt, you can get to generate your own 3D models. So the first thing that I actually want to do is to just create a basic 3D model as if it were a character, and then we're gonna be trying to be moving that character inside of Godot. So in order to start off with this, there are many ways to do it. You can either look for some game assets, okay, that you can find online, do your own one, use some concept art from other AI tools, whatever you want, or you can also type in your own text, for example, a robot, and then it's gonna to automatically use that. Personally, what is usually used is basically an image because it's much more accurate. So let's basically do that. So for example, here I found this image over here. So let me actually save it as just a PNG, okay, over here, and I will save it here on my downloads. And now we're going to press here on the plus, and we're going to be loading this as the reference, okay? So your image is currently being processed. Let's give it a second. Once again, you also have like lots of options here to customize the generation, but we're going to get that as the course goes by. So right now, let's just load in this image. You also have some options here to play around a little bit with it and modify it, but let's right now just click on generate. And this is something pretty interesting, is that now you have some modes. So you first have focal mode, for example, which is very good for being detailed. Then you also have, for example, speedy, which is mostly meant to maybe not provide the best results ever, but it's up to 8 times faster, so pretty interesting as well. You also have the zero mode, which is for clean and sharp surfaces. Or the way you can keep the default mode, which is like as eroding used to be always. So that's basically that. But for this specific model, let's say that we want to use focal, okay, because we do want this player to be quite detailed. So let's basically choose this mode. Here also the image should be as clean as possible. In this case it has a watermark, as you can see, so that could be a potential problem. So we should ideally try to find clean images. But anyway, this is something that could happen as you create a game, okay, that you want a reference and has a watermark. So routing, what allows you to do is to delete some objects here from the generation. So we don't want to take into account this object or this other one or this other one or this other one. We just want like the player self. So also make this box a little bit bigger. So something like that, okay, and now let's press on generate. And here we start to see like the real power that this tool has. Once again, remember the reference that we provided and take a look at how it mostly perfectly replicated the geometry and completed some parts that were not visible, okay, in this image in specific. So just take a look at it. It's pretty interesting. So first of all, as you can see, this has some steps. First of all, you create the geometry, which is basically the shape. As you can see, this has no color, no textures. That is what we do in the material generation step. You can actually like toggle lots of things here, and also you have for the geometry some more advanced options that we're gonna be covering in a second, okay, but not for this generation. So here you have like lots of options that you can take a look at if you want, but once again, these are maybe more advanced, so it's not really necessary for what we are trying to achieve over here. So you can either redo it or confirm it, okay, and when you want to confirm it, you have, well, pro mode to determine the sharp triangular mesh, okay, to determine how many you want, or you even have a quad mesh. So once again, it really depends on what you want, how many credits you have, how many are you willing to spend, etc. But in this case, I will just confirm it as it is over here. And once again, we have to give it a second. And here it is, we have successfully confirmed the geometry. So now what we have to do is to generate the material, basically the colors, the texture. So you can provide here a text prompt to determine, okay, if you want some specific requirements, but I believe that with the reference and what is over here is going to be more than enough. So once again, if you hover on generate, you have some options. Once again, in lots of cases, you can just press that it's okay, the default options. We can enhance facial details, enable this feature. So you also have this option that in this case, even the AI was able to detect, okay, this is a character or, well, something that has a face. So here, if it's gonna automatically enhance the face details and make it actually look good, we can enable this feature as well. So let's just give it a second and let's see how it behaves. Something very important is that whenever you confirm any of these steps that we have to follow, you cannot like easily go back, okay? You have to kind of start from scratch or something like that. So really make sure that whenever you are confirming a step, that you're actually satisfied with it. Then of course, if you have 3D modeling skills, you can super easily, as you can see, download it in any format and open it in Blender, for example, and edit it as you wish. But well, if you're a game programmer and you don't know much about 3D, well, try to make it as good as possible directly over here. And once again, you're gonna be pretty surprised probably by the results that you get. You can say, oh, but maybe here the hair is not perfect, or here maybe the jeans are not so perfect. Oh, we can actually try to make it better, okay? But just take a look at it in a matter of 6 minutes or even less, what we have been able to generate and how much time it would take to actually modulate all this from scratch. So what you can do if you are not satisfied with the results and you want to fix some stuff, you can actually provide here in the text prompt, okay, what exactly do we want to fix and what I want to try to fix it. For example, the jeans here, the shoes, and also maybe the face over here in the eyes more specifically. But once again, all these things that maybe the texture does not match perfectly, these are things that you can easily fix in a 3D modeling software if you have the skills to do it, okay? So we have the character, okay, and let's give it some extra instructions. Because for example, if you take a look at the reference, what happens is that the jeans have like that gradient in color. So that's what it's trying to replicate. Maybe it was not the best result ever, but it was what it's trying to do. So we can say, make the jeans just have one color. For example, maybe the AI would understand what we want. I don't know, make sure the eyes look good. Maybe something like that. And what else? Well, here the AI maybe tried to do a fade in the hair or whatever. The hair should not have a fade, for example. And what else could we fix? Maybe more stuff, but I believe that would be the most important thing. Or even the shoes, but I don't think the shoes are that bad. But also let's make sure the shoes should look better. I don't know, something like that. And let's try over here redo. So once again, do not press confirm because if not, it's gonna be pretty complicated to go back. So let's just press generate, wait a couple of seconds. So in this case, after a couple of attempts to make this look as good as possible, this is the best one. Once again, remember that here we are looking just at the character, but then in the game we are not just gonna be looking at the character, but there are gonna be many more elements. I know, maybe platforms, coins, whatever it is. So it's not like the player will ever just take a look at the player as it is, because if it's gonna do it like that, maybe the bad things about the model can be seen very easily. But if you look it from here, from this perspective, it looks pretty good, okay? Once again, the hair maybe here doesn't look that good. You can try to redo it. Also, you can increase or decrease the reference strength. So for example, that could also be pretty interesting for you to play around with those values. So for example, here I've just pressed redo. I didn't change the prompt or anything. And right now, for example, the hair does look way better, okay? And everything in general looks way better. So this is just a matter of trying. So once that you like it, you just press on confirm. So once again, here we have lots of options, but really just to have this inside of our game, we don't really need many things. In Godot, you can, I believe, use these 3 formats. They are pretty similar. Usually the one that is used because it has the best settings and the best support is usually GLV, so that's the one that I tend to use, but once again, these two will also work pretty similarly. So once that you have it, you can just press over here on download. So as you can see, you're gonna get downloaded a zip file. So let's actually extract it to the corresponding folder, okay? So we keep everything organized. And here we have the shaded, okay, which is well the model, and then we also have the PVR, okay? So let's actually open this in Godot and let's see what we end up having. So let me just throw this into the project, so over here, okay, and let's actually create here a new folder, which is gonna be my models, okay, and let me put this thing right there. And now let me open up Godot, so let's give it just a second for this to load in. I also imported a 3D controller that we're gonna be using in a second, just for you to know. So here we have it. As usually when we import something, we tend to have some warnings there, but it's not really necessary to take a look at them. So what we have here are these models. So if we want to double click on this one, for example, here we have the model directly over here. As you can see, it looks pretty good. Okay, and then you also have this other one. Okay, in reality, okay, both of them are pretty similar. They just react a little bit differently to lights. For example, if I look at it in the front, as you can see, this is what I have. And by the way, this line of the eyes, it was because there was a watermark, as you can see. So once again, if you wanted to generate your images, maybe you would need to look for images that don't have a watermark. But this is even something good to tell about this AI. Even though there were lots of watermarks, the model was still able to be generated. So pretty interesting. So as you can see, how they react to lighting is a little bit different. So, and also this one maybe has some problems here with the eyes and everything. So maybe in this case, the shaded one would be way better. So how exactly you go about using this one? So usually what you would do is to, for example, create a new scene with, let's say, a character body, 3D in this case, and you just drag and drop the scene over here in the scene, okay? And with this, you already have your model, okay? You would have to make it go to 0, 0, and there it is. And here you would add your collision, your script, whatever, okay? Because this would already work. Now, what I'm gonna do, just to make this player move around, is to use what is a template, okay, or an add-on that is gonna actually allow us to quickly move this, okay, without having to type any code. So this is actually made by Patrikios. Okay, I'm gonna be leaving a link to this in the description down below. You just press code, download zip, and extract it inside of your Godot folder. That's all that you have to do. And you're gonna be having this, okay? You have here the scene, okay? So as you can see, there is a missing dependency, but let's just press open anyway. I believe it was because I moved it. And here in this case, we have this scene, okay, which has this capsule over here with a mesh, a collider, and a head with a camera. So what I'm gonna do is to attach this over here because I think that dependency was broken when I imported it into Godot or something like that. So let's just make sure this is attached right over here. And this is just some pre-made code. In reality, you have lots of things that you can modify over here and lots of options, okay? But most importantly, we want to modify the mesh or the shape of this. So in this case, let's directly delete this mesh. And let's drag and drop our own one. We are using the shaded one, so let's put it over here and let's make sure this is on 0, 0. Okay, and also we would have to adjust, well, the collider, the camera, all that. We're gonna be doing it step by step. So first of all, let me make this a little bit smaller and let me reset this position. Maybe something like that. Well, of course, you can make it better if you want, but something like that I believe is gonna be more than enough. Okay. But now we need a scene in which the player can walk around. So let's create a brand new 3D scene. I'm gonna call it main. And I will put the basic stuff, basically the sun and the environment. And then what I'm gonna do is to create a static body. Okay, and inside of here I will create a new mesh with Control A. I'm using Control A to quickly add a child node, okay? And over here, let's create, for example, a plane, okay? And let's make it way bigger, so maybe something like, well, I believe 1, is gonna be fine for what we need to do. And let's basically generate a collision. So collision shape. Let's make it like this. Now let's just make it, for example, a box, or in reality, let's use the shortcut to quickly create a collision from here. So collision shape. Let's create as a tree mesh. I don't really care about performance right now. for this project. So like this is gonna be more than enough. And over here we have this scene. So what we can do is go to scene, save scene as, okay, and let's save it over here in our root resources folder. I'm gonna create here a new one, scenes, and instead of calling it proto controller, let's just call it player. Okay, there we go, and let's rename this one to player so that everything is nice and organized. Let's also save this one, and let's instantiate our player. Okay, so here we have it. Maybe yes, the space is a little bit too small, so let's scale this in a little bit. So let's select the mesh, transform, let's make it 5 in all axes. So there it is. And the collision shape, I don't know if this was really made bigger. No, it wasn't. So let's just make a new shape. Let's make a new box and let's make it 5, 5. Or in reality, this should cover even a bigger, yes, because I shouldn't have scaled this in like this. So let's make scale back to 1 and let's directly control it with the size over here. So let's make it here 5, 5 or even a little bit more, just to have more space to play around with. 10, 10. And in the collision shape, once again, 10, 10. Okay, so now it's perfect. And let's reduce the Y size to something like 0.1. I believe it's gonna be good. Yes, or even 0.001. Okay, that's gonna be good. And let's see what we end up having. Okay, so let me run the current scene. And let's give it a second. Now we can't see the model because of how the camera is set up, because it is a first person controller. So in reality, let's modify here the head. So what we can do with the camera, as you can see, we can preview what the camera is seeing. And in reality, right now, it doesn't make much sense. So first of all, what we want to do is to change the head position, maybe to something like right here, and then let's rotate it a little bit so that it can face here the head. Let's rotate it a little bit, maybe something like that. Let's just start maybe to actually see it. Okay, something like this, and we should also maybe rotate the model in the Y. So something like that. And once again, I want to see how the setup exactly works like, because maybe we need to adjust some more stuff. Okay. So in reality, this works perfectly. I can move around with the keyboard, okay, with the left and right keys, and I can move around with the mouse, okay, with the camera basically. Maybe the head is a little bit too far up, probably. But once again, these are all things that we can get to adjust. So it's early that this camera setting is pretty good. I will show you right now. Once again, this may really depend on your model size and everything, but just for you to check that everything at least looks good in this model. So the camera has an FOV of 110. It has this rotation. It is in 0, 0. This is the camera itself, but the head in this case is in this position. Okay. And with this, if you rotate sometimes the head or move the camera instead of the head, the controller basically breaks. So make sure that the camera is always on 0, 0. That is the one that is rotated, but that the head is the one that actually has the position modified, and that the rotation of the head is not modified. Okay, and with that, you're gonna make sure that everything looks good. Now let me also just make this this thing much bigger. So 30, 30, for example, and in this one 30, 30 as well. Okay, so now let's play again. Okay, and now it does look much better. Okay, so this is what we have right now. And also, by the way, talking about characters, there are dozens of characters that are already generated here if you wanted to use some pre-made ones. So for example, in this case, well, you have this guy over here, maybe I know this other kind of doctor or whatever he is, this one. So even take a look at the style of this one. So pretty interesting, the style of this one. Okay, there's kind of using squares or, well, more primitive shapes. So pretty interesting everything that you have over here, just as a stock of stuff that is already made. So also something that could be pretty important for this is how to animate this character. So you can use, of course, some kind of websites such as Mixamo. So let's go to upload the character. Okay. So here you have the formats that this one supports. So for example, it doesn't support actually GLB. So first of all, what we have to do is to go to the story of stuff that indeed we have, to mine to the stuff that we have generated. And here we can download it in other formats. For example, let's download it in FBX, and let's press over here download once again. And once that we have the zip file, we once again want to extract it to its corresponding folder. So here it is. We are using the shaded version, so this is the one that we're gonna be using. So let's basically drag and drop it inside of Mixamo directly over here. So let's try to do it. So base, and then over here. However, here we're gonna be having one main problem. Don't worry about the texture, because then we're gonna be applying it inside of Godot. The thing is that our character is not in T pose. In reality, when you generate a model in Deemos, you did have the option over here to select T/A pose. That could have been the best thing to do, okay, to directly have here the character in the corresponding position, because if we wanted to do it like this and we align the things, here's the gesture that we wanted, and if you try to do it like this, the most probable thing is that you're gonna receive an error, or the animation that Mixamo is gonna be able to create isn't gonna be that accurate, okay? So I will just do it here for you to see it, but the most probable thing is that it is not gonna be applying the animations in the best way possible. So as you can see here, Mixamo wasn't able to generate it. So what solutions do we have? So in reality, what I'm gonna be doing is just starting off from scratch. Of course, I'm not gonna show you the exact same process, but I do want to show you what is important thing here for you to enable so that you have the character ready to be animated. So the one that you need here is TA pose, okay? And once that you have selected it, you have to press redo. And now here we have what we actually need. Let me super quickly finish up this model and I'll get back to recording the video. So basically here I have it, okay, in T pose. So let's put here the rings where they should be. Then let's press next. So okay, here we have it, okay, so you can see it's perfectly animated right now. So let's press over here next. And once again, the good thing about here Mixamo is that you can literally press on any of these animations and it's gonna automatically be applied. So I don't know, for example, here we have a jump. So let me download a couple of them. So for example, let me look for an idle animation. So maybe, I don't know, this one. So what we have to do is to press over here, download. Once again, here you have the format. So you have many formats. I believe that for Godot, the best one here would be FBX binary, basically this one. You would download it with skin and with basically everything that you need. And well, now you have the corresponding FBX file, basically. So with this, you can easily use it to actually get your player animated. You have the process that in Godot, you actually have to kind of join up all these animations together. We are not gonna go through that process exactly in this video, but what I will show you is like maybe how we can get this imported inside of Godot. So here I have the file, so let me grab it over here and I will just drag and drop it here inside of Godot. Inside of my resources, it's gonna be just fine. So here we have the file. So if we actually try to drag and drop it over here, not inside of the static body, just over here. Okay, this is what we actually find, that we have literally nothing here. Well, it seems that there is nothing. So what I'm gonna do is double click here on FBX, and in reality we do see that we have the corresponding model with the corresponding animation, as you can see. Okay, so in that manner that looks good. So what do we have here? So if we try to scale this in, for example, here we actually have the model. What we could do here is to just make this local, okay? So we have access to everything. And what we would be able to do is to grab the model, get the transform and just make it way bigger, something like maybe 50, okay? So there it is. And what happens here that it is completely white. So this is because this doesn't have the textures applied. So we have to go to surface material override, create a new standard material. Okay, and over here we have to load in the different materials. From where do we get them? We basically have to go to where we have the generation, which was over here, but I believe this one is not gonna work because it's not the one that was in T pose. So I believe that this one is not actually gonna be working properly. No, it isn't. So what I'm going to do is to download this model in FBX. And basically you just import here the corresponding shaded.png and you drag and drop it directly here. As you can see now everything looks as it should. And once again, remember it has the corresponding animation with the, well, the corresponding animation player with the corresponding animation, okay? So once again, the process of actually getting to import animations from Mixamo to Godot is a little bit more complex than it seems to be. Here, the idea of this course is just for you to know that you have this tool to, in a second, generate models, and that you can also combine it with Mixamo to generate your animations, and how to rig everything together is a complete separate part. But once again, there are dozens of tutorials out there on how to import multiple Mixamo animations inside of Godot, so we didn't think it was actually worth to mention it here. We wanted to focus more on how to use all these tools together and combine it into just one workflow. So something that we could potentially add to a game are some platforms, and to generate these platforms there is a tool that we can use that is pretty interesting, which is the bounding box control net. So this allows you to, as you can see, modify or actually have an impact on the generation size, on the width, the height, the depth, etc. So in this case, I'm just going to use a text input so that we see how it behaves. So I want to create a 3D cartoon platform. So as simple as that. I will press there on the tick and it's going to generate a reference model for us, or a reference image. So in reality here, I don't know what this was generated, a 3D cartoon platform for a 3D platformer game. Of course, this prompt is not the best one. We should be way more specific or even provide a reference image. But maybe with this, it is able to understand what we want to generate, but it isn't. Okay, so let's be even more specific. So in reality, let's just use here an example to actually get what we need. So let me save this as a PNG and I will now use it as a reference. So here in downloads, and over here I will upload it. So brick block. Okay, and let's give it a second, and then let's press here on generate. Once again, I'm using it with focal, which is the one that, remember, it has the more details. I believe it's the one that we will actually need in most cases. Oh well, it's gonna take more time, but it's gonna be worth it. So for example, here I have it. So also make sure that they are changing the generation mode from normal to the one that is more detailed, because maybe you think that one's gonna work, but maybe that mode is not meant for what you wanted to create. For example, I was using the one for the most number of details, and it was actually creating a block. It was creating something way different, so I switched back to the normal mode, and in this case, as you can see, it's creating perfectly what we want. And here you have it. Okay, it's of course super interesting what it was able to generate. So let's press over here confirm. And well, as we used to have our player animations in FBX, we could also not only in FBX or GLB. I believe that the one that has the most support and the most tools to play around with in Godot is GLB. So in this case, we don't want to animate this thing. So with GLB, we're gonna go just fine. Once again, there are technical differences between OBJ, FBX, GLB. We have seen one of it. For example, if you want to animate it, you must download it in FBX. But well, then there are even more differences. But once again, the idea of the course is to show you the AI tool into a workflow, not to discuss all these differences. So once again, here we have the zip file. So let's go to WinRAR, extract to the corresponding folder. And in this case, we have both options. So let me actually rename this one to platform. Okay, and let me grab it over here and I will drop it here instead of Godot, instead of my models folder. This one was the player, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. So let's give it there a second. Once again, every time that you import something in Godot, you have lots of warnings and errors, but anyway. So once again, I believe that the one that we're going to be using is probably the shaded one. So you have it, it looks gorgeous, literally. It's something rather simple, but still in 2 seconds we were able to generate it. And here we have the PVR version. So once again, the lighting is a little bit different, but both of them are going to work just fine. What happens if we want to add collisions to this? Because well, our player has collisions, but the player cannot in reality kind of jump on top of it or do anything. As you can see, can directly trespass it. Also, the player moves a little bit faster than what I would like to move it like. So we have base speed. Let's make it maybe 4. So let's go here to the main one. And what happens if we want to make it actually like a collision? So let's delete it and let's do something very similar. Let's create a static body in this case, and let's use the shaded version. Okay, and let's reset it. And then over here, let's add in this case a new collision shape 3D. And let's directly over here generate a new box shape, and let's make it a little bit smaller. Or in reality, let me make this model a little bit bigger, so maybe something like 2. Okay, and now the collision shape. So let me just adjust it. So there we have it. Let me just reset it here in the X and the Z. And yeah, something like that's gonna work. So let's call this one platform. And in the main scene, okay, let's go to here, platform. Okay. Yeah, it was maybe a little bit too big, but I don't think it's that bad. So let me create one over there. And now the player should be able to interact with it. So it should collide basically with it. There we go. We should even be able to jump on top of it. Okay. There we go. Once again here, the collision shape is not perfect. So we should maybe try to fix it. Okay. Yes, this is not the best collision shape, probably. So yes, let me try to make it as good as possible. Or even what you can do is to make this thing local, grab the model and just create the collision shape directly here. Okay, and delete this one. Okay, and make this collision shape a child of the static body. Okay, once again, this has lots of polygons. This is not the best thing for performance. There are other options, but once again, this is completely out of the scope of this project. So now when we play, the collision should be way better, or mostly kind of perfect. So there we have it. Okay, and with this you would indeed be able to design your own levels. So let's get this platform. Okay, so let me delete it so that we have the correct name. Platform. I don't know what this is, static body. I believe I have not renamed this properly, my bad. So platform. Let's save the changes. And once again here we would now need to delete this one, instantiate the game, and there we have it. Just as a side note, to quickly design 3D levels, you can use grid map node, but in this case, let's just do it with snapping. So let me grab one platform there. Let's create another one over here. And another one maybe over here. Okay, so now we do have something that we can jump on and play around with. Okay. So pretty interesting. There we go. There we go. There we go. What I want to change now is how the input works. So first of all, what I want to do is to, as soon as the game starts, I want to capture the mouse, okay? So, because if not, I have to click and I don't like that. Let's put it right over there at the very beginning. And now let's also change the input actions, okay? So, I don't want to move with UI left. I want to move with WAS and D. So, once again, this is out of the scope of the course. So, I will just skip it and do it on my own. So what I basically did here in the player controller was to change the input action names, okay? And then I created them in the input map and I assigned the corresponding keys that I wanted. So now everything does look and feel much better, okay? As soon as the game starts, the mouse is captured, as you can see, so we don't have to click anymore. And now we can play around, and as you can see, well, we get to jump on top of all these platforms, okay? It's a little bit laggy, but it's because of the collisions that are not set up properly, okay? They are super unoptimized, okay? But once again, this is not something that we have to care about right now. This was just for your demonstration of how you can create a 3D scene in literally a second, okay? So that's also pretty interesting. Something that is also pretty interesting that I wanted to explain is that, well, I just started a new generation with this material, is that here in these settings, well, you have bounding box, boxes, point cloud, well, some of them are maybe more complicated than others. The easiest one to understand is bounding box. So what you can do here is to generate your own bounding box, which basically determines the size of this. So we can make like a bigger platform. So not just like a square. Here we have like some kind of rectangle generated. So that's pretty interesting. So in reality here, when you first press on bounding box, you have like a button to either upload the model or to handcraft your own one. So first of all, let me try to clean it and then generate it. Here you have it. So handcraft. So here, let's try this width, height, and depth, okay? And we can confirm it and we can redo it. And well, we should have something like this as a result. So once again, these are all options that you have to customize your generation even more. So here we have one, for example, that looks pretty interesting. Once again, here we have even more options to modify. So for example, previously I wasn't getting good results. I was having this option turned on. And I turn it off, and I basically turn on edges and turn off smooth, I believe. So well, this geometry does look good. So well, once again, I will just generate this other model and load it in Godot as we have done before, so that we can see these variations. So here we have the second platform. So this one it is. Okay, this one, as we have set it up, it was like kind of a little bit bigger. So here we have it. Let's make it local, okay, so that we can get to modify the material. So standard material, albedo, and texture, and there it is. And now of course this should be way smaller, so maybe let's make it 1, or well, maybe too small, so 10, a little bit more, 30. Okay, and here you can see kind of like the differences between the two. Okay, so well, pretty interesting what we are able to do with this option. Okay, we previously generated like a square, okay, and now we have a rectangle. Okay, so pretty interesting. Now let's also generate a coin. So I basically just provided here text input that was saying create a 3D coin, nothing else. So we're not gonna probably be using a reference image, just that, because it's a pretty kind of generic item also and pretty simple to generate. So let's see what we end up having. So now here I have the coin that I have generated. So here it is, but well, once again we have to kind of set it up. So actually I want this to be able to be collected, so let's create it as an area 3D first of all, and let's now load it in right here. And in the transform, let's just first of all make it local so we can access the mesh. Okay, and then over here let's just make this thing way bigger. So transform scale, and well, here it is, as you can see, it's super tiny, so let's make it way bigger. Yes, even more maybe. Yes, maybe there is a little too much, so let's make it 1 2 3 4. So let's make it with 3 zeros, so 5,000, maybe, yes, something like that. Then if we have to adjust it, we will adjust it. Let's save it, this thing as coin. Okay, and then let's generate the collision. Okay, exactly like this. And now in the main scene, let's try to instantiate this coin. Okay. Oh wow, it is super big. So let's make it smaller. Maybe, yes, 2,000 maybe. But well, now the collision has broken, so we have to generate it again. Let's generate a single convex so that it is maybe a little bit more optimized. And let's drop it over here. And now we have to load in the corresponding texture, as we have done already a dozen times. So albedo and shaded, and there we have it. Okay, yes, perfect. Let's save the changes. Okay, this is named area 3D, but it was because the changes were not saved, so let's save it now correctly. There we go. Once again, using the snapping, okay, here you can also modify the snapping. It was here, configure snap. You can modify here the unit, but well, something maybe like this. Yes, like this maybe, and we should even make it smaller. So there we have it. Okay, we have the first coin. Then let's put a second one right over here, and let's put a third one maybe over here. Okay, now I want to get rid of this plane over here. So in reality, what I want to use is the other block that we have created. So I will super quickly set it up using a static body, as we have already done. Okay, so here it is, and let's also optimize the collisions of this, because you can see it has like lots of polygons and it's not actually needed. So let's delete this one, and let's actually create as a sibling and as a single convex. Okay, now as you can see, it is maybe not that accurate, but it's gonna still be more than enough. Okay, and now when we play, we shouldn't have that lag that we used to have. So now as you can see, everything works perfect. Okay, the collision still looks perfect. Well, we have even a little more lag, but I think it was because everything was kind of loading in. Okay. But in reality, the one that I wanted to generate, it was my bad one, was this one that's called simplified convex, because as you can see, it has even less polygons. Okay, so it is even more performance. So right now, we shouldn't be having any problem in terms of performance, as you can see. So it's basically that. Now, as you can see, I cannot kind of collect these coins, so we should definitely improve that, or actually not improve that, but make that functionality. So let's go to the coin and let's basically attach a new script here, under our new scripts folder. Okay, and let's generate it with an empty script. So the only thing I will do, the player is a body, so body entered. What I will do is to add this to a group. I will copy this scene group name. And the other thing that I'm gonna have to check is to check if body.is in group player. And if it is, what we're gonna do is to destroy ourselves. So just Q3. So if we now play, whenever we collect with the coin, okay, there it is. It basically gets deleted. So I was gonna say everything looks and feels perfect. Okay, there we go. Now, another thing that you can do in order to quickly make your game look a little bit better is to add rotation. So for this kind of coins, once again, in reality, there are dozens of effects that you can add and stuff that you can add on top to make it look even better. But something that's pretty cool is that you can get to the rotation exactly in the y-axis and just make it loop, okay? Or just make it rotate infinitely, okay? So what we can just do, once again, I'm not gonna get too technical because it's not the idea of this course, but I will just use the process delta function and want to modify the y rotation. So we're gonna get the rotation degrees dot y, and let's increase it by delta times a certain speed. So for example 20.0, and let's now declare this as a constant. So rotation speed, this is gonna be a float. Okay, something like this. Rotation speed, that's perfect. And now we should see this thing kind of rotating around. Okay, so there it is. It's super slow right now, so I actually wanted to put here 200 maybe. That would be a good value, I believe. So there it is. Now, even though this had made the coins look way better, we had the problem that all the coins are rotating at the same time. So it looked a little bit confusing. So what we can actually do is to randomize this. So we can create the ready function here and make rotation speed equals to randy range, because we want a random integer from, for example, 100 to 250, for example. But right now this shouldn't be a constant, therefore we have to rename it. So rotation speed. There we go. And now when we play, we shouldn't be having that feeling anymore because they are always rotating differently. If you want to take this a step further, what you can do is to also either rotate to the left or to the right. Right now, as you can see, if you increase it, you are rotating like in that way. But if you decrease it, you are rotating the other way around. So there are multiple ways of doing it. What you could do is to create a random number. So random number. Okay, and let's make this an int. And let's do a randy range. And let's check exclusivity of this function. So this is inclusive. So it returns either 0 or 1. This is what I want. So from 0 to 1. Another thing that I really want to do is to say, okay, if random number is 0, I want to move to the right. Whereas, okay, if this is not true, I want to do the same thing but decrease it. Okay, so move kind of like to the left, it would be. So once again, these are all tips to make everything look better and feel better. But in reality, I think that yes, maybe 100 is not the best thing. And also here in process, we shouldn't be doing this. So in reality, what I wanted to do is to declare it here. Okay, random number, and take this thing over here and actually execute this just in ready. So random number equals this. You can also use this with an onReady annotation rather than doing it here, but I believe it's way easier to do it like that and more explicit. So there it is. As you can see, some of them are moving to the left, such as the first one, okay? Other ones are moving to the right as the second one, and the third one is moving to the left. So now all your coins kind of seem different from each other, and this does add up to the final game, so pretty interesting. And with all this, even though the generation, of course, is not kind of perfect, because if we hide the collision and we take a look at it, I don't know, here we have some letters that don't say anything, all that. But when you're playing the game, you don't actually have the enough time, or the camera doesn't have enough zoom sometimes to realize all these changes. Once again, AI is always evolving, it's always becoming better. If we are able to have these models generated right now in 2025, we can think of what we can have generated for 2026 or 2027. It's something that really blows away my mind, what we can end up having, okay? Because once again, let's just take a look at the level. Of course, it's not perfect. If you put a lot of zoom in the camera, you see, oh, but here, what is this over here? Why is this like this? Why is the player, I don't know, that white, or doesn't have, like here in the neck, it's maybe a little bit not perfect, or I know that the shoes here. But once again, if you're just over here kind of trying to play the game, those are just small details that you won't be able to realize while you are playing, okay? So it's pretty important for you to understand that, of course, this is not close to what you may be able to create when you create the models yourself. But of course, it's not also similar, the amount of time that we have put on to create these models. Okay, we have not even thrown them in Blender, for example, try to fix the texture, the geometry. We literally downloaded it from the AI platform and put it in the game. The idea in most cases is not to do that. It's maybe to use them as the base for our project, but then we should have either someone that fine-tunes them, or we ourselves just get into Blender, understand it a little bit, and try to polish it, okay? But once again, that is something that is up to you. Now, also, another thing pretty interesting that Deemos has is Omnicraft, okay? So, once again, Deemos has three main tools. Routing, that is the one that we have been using. It also has Chat Avatar, which is basically used for 3D faces, but in this case, we weren't focusing this course on this specific, but just for you to know that if you have something super realistic, you want to have super realistic faces, well, then you have it here if you want to use. Well, maybe Rodin is more like more for the general user, for the general project. It has way more usages, okay? And then you have Omnicraft, which is basically a tool bag, a collection of 3D tools. So you have like lots of things here. We are not gonna be able to, of course, check them all. But we're gonna be able to check them out, check some of them. We have HDRI generator. So if you don't know what this is basically what you use to generate the skybox. You also have a texture generator. So this is also pretty interesting because you have a model and you can directly put any kinds of image. Well, and then you have even more things. We're gonna be trying to cover them all or some of them. But the first one that I believe is the most important one, at least for the general Godot user, is HDRI generator. Okay. Once again, you can either drag and drop an image or choose an image if you have a specific environment that you want. Once again, it's not perfect. Take a look at that mountain. It's not perfect, but in general, the environment looks amazing to just being able to generate it in 3 seconds. So once again, we can generate it from text, so we can describe it. Okay. So we can say, I want a sunny day, okay, for example, with some mountains with snow. Well, sunny day with mountains with snow is not something that is compatible. So sunny day with some mountains, for example. And let's see what we end up having. So let's generate. So here we have it, for example, okay? So pretty interesting, the preview image that we have. So we can directly regenerate it, okay, or unlock it. So let's press over here on unlock. So here we have it, as you can see, pretty interesting what we have been able to generate in literally 5 seconds. So we have here the button to download this HDRI. So we have to give it a second, and now I'll also show you how you can actually use this inside of Godot. Because in reality, a skybox can really make your game stand out if you are prototyping it or just doing something basic. Because remember, right now in Godot, the only thing that we have is the default sky or just a solid color you may have, and this can really make it look way better. So here I have the folder of the zip file that I've just extracted and renamed. So we have all these things. So let's basically grab this sky folder and let's put it inside of Godot, here inside of the resources folder, and I will show you how you can actually use this. So first of all, what you have to do is to go to a world environment node. This is the node that basically handles the environment itself. So for example, right now in background we have sky, but it could be a custom color, for example. This also, sorry, let's put this in sky. The energy multiplier, okay? So how bright your world is. You also have the sky. So we have lots of things here. So it's pretty interesting here, this node, if you want to take a look at it more in depth, but anyway. So we want to open up the sky, okay? And here on this arrow, we have to press on new panorama sky material. This is the one that actually allows you to use an HDRI. So we press on it, we open it up, and we have to load in the panorama, okay? So we are gonna look for the HDRI, so sky, and it's over here. So for the EXR, in this case, it is. So let's put it right over here, and there it is, okay? So now when we play, we're gonna see a huge difference. Sometimes you have to adjust the energy of this, so 0.7 for example, because sometimes the sun is kind of super bright, okay? Maybe like this, but you can see that now, right now it does look like as if this was a complete different game. So there you have it. Of course, it's maybe kind of confusing because we have a cartoon game in a realistic place, but once again, this is just for us to have like an example, okay? And talking about this, how do we manage this? That basically, well, we have fallen and there is no way to restart the level or anything like that. Let's super quickly do it just in case. And this is also the initial platform, so let me call it the initial platform. So for this, we need basically an area, okay? And we need a collision. That's all that we need. Let's call this one death zone. Let's create a new shape. So for example, a new box, and let's move this thing down. Maybe something like that, yes. And let's just make this thing way bigger in the X and the Z. So maybe, I don't know, 50, 50, so that it covers kind of like the whole level. And once again, let's attach a new script. Okay, and let's connect the on-body enter signal to detect the collision with the player. And let's make sure it is connected to a death zone. Okay, so you don't need to connect it to a player. Actually, it's not that you don't need, you mustn't, because if not, it's not gonna work properly. So make sure that it is connected over here. And once again, we have to do the same validation. So if body dot is in group player, if it is, in this case, we want to reload the current scene. So get3 dot reload current scene. Okay, as simple as that. So now if we fall, the level is gonna be completely restarted. Okay, so we can try to collect the coin, but let's say, oh, we have fallen. Okay, and here the level has been restarted. Why did we have that lag and we have this error here? Because, well, we have a player that is falling, and sometimes all those kind of physics interactions, in the middle of those physics interactions, Godot doesn't like kind of reloading the scene like this. What you have to do is to actually add here dot call underscore deferred, and here look for reload current scene, and of course you have to delete it from here. Okay, and with this we shouldn't have any lag. We may be seeing some lag because, well, I'm recording and have dozens of tabs open, but you will see that you shouldn't be experiencing any kind of lag. And there we have it, and there we have our level that has been reset. Okay, so pretty interesting everything that we have been able to achieve with this amazing tool, and it's something that, as you can see, really changes your game. If you take a look at the game before the new sky and after the new sky, it's something completely different. Okay, so that's why I actually wanted to explain this tool, how to use it, because it was something that was actually pretty interesting. Once again, these tools are all super intuitive, and you can quite easily understand what they are for and how to use them. Fortunately, the user experience is amazing, so pretty interesting in that manner. Then let me also tell you a little bit about the texture generator. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to understand. We have a model, okay, and we just can provide an image to determine what texture we want to apply to a model. So for example, here we have this white model, which is some kind of like robot, and here the user uploaded a variety of images, and, well, the model was texturized using those images. So pretty good to, for example, if you have generated a model and you want to texturize it with a 2D image, for example, it's super interesting. Then you also have routing search. So for example here, this is like kind of, it's gonna look for your model in lots of websites. In this case, it's gonna look in routing, Sketchfab, Free3D, and BlendSwap, which are all 3D marketplaces where you can find assets. So this was like what we found in terms of platforms. But for example, or you can even drop your image or 3D model and it will try to look for different, for similar things to what you have uploaded. Some kind of something similar to Google Lens, for example. And here, instead of a platform, let's look for a 3D character. So something maybe more generic. And well, here you can find 3D characters from lots of places. Okay, so pretty interesting, this tool as well. The next one is maybe not so useful for game developers, or for at least for what we want to do. This basically creates or converts SVG files to 3D models. So maybe to create a 3D icon or something like that could be useful, but I don't find it more useful for developers or anything like that. Okay, but just for you to know that if you have maybe an icon, this is the icon of Deemos, okay, and you want to, for some reason, make your icon 3D or whatever to put it there on your game or literally whatever you need, you can just do it, okay? Then you also have the mesh editor. This is basically, you can import an existing model and kind of sculpt it, okay, and modify the geometry of it. It's basically that. It's completely online, so that's the important thing. As you can see, it doesn't require a login. It's free to all, so pretty interesting as well. You also have the model viewer. So basically here you upload your own image and it's gonna have like those things. So if we try to import here something, let's import, for example, our coin. Okay, and let's give it a second. So here we have different things. So as you can see with this, well, we have like lots of things that we could do. We can feed them all to window. We can change the type of camera that we're gonna be having, okay? We can move around, okay? So it's basically just to view the model a little bit better, to have information about the model, okay? To download, export it, take a picture, whatever we need, we're gonna be able to do it directly there. And lastly, we have the format converter. This could be useful in some situations, maybe not to combine it with other tools, but just for you to know that this tool exists. Once again, the important thing is that in lots of these websites, they require you to log in, to give your email, and then they start sending you some stuff. And in this case, you're not gonna be having to give your email address to anyone. You can directly upload your files and it's gonna do its magic. So you can basically upload, for example, an FBX and change it to an OBJ or to a GLV or whatever you need. Because once again, sometimes different engines like different formats, and sometimes you find some assets online that are of some format and the engine does not work with that format. For example, a long time ago, Godot had lots of problems with to deal with FBX, and right now it natively supports them, so that's amazing. But well, that is just an example for you to understand in which situations this may be useful. How I like to think of routing and not of routing just, but of Deemos, because really they are all the time updating and giving us new tools to use. You don't have to use all these tools. In reality, we have not talked about all of them in detail. You don't have to get super overwhelmed because the huge number of things that currently exist, because you have bounding box, you have point voxel control net, you have here point cloud control net, you have lots of things here to play around with. But don't feel overwhelmed. Just start discovering these tools and start integrating them into their workflow, into your workflow, sorry, as they are released and as long as they fit what you need to do as a developer. Because now with all the AI boom, we are all the time trying to look for that kind of AI tool that will allow us to be super productive, to save a lot of money, to save a lot of time. But we don't focus that much on actually trying to prioritize some tools over the other ones, or we just are all the time looking for new tools rather than mastering those tools. Rolling has way more to offer than what I've showed you in this 1 hour video. It has way more. So really take that time to understand it, understand everything of this tool, because it can really be a life changer for you as a game developer. Now, just the last thing that I want to do in order to finish up this video is to create an actual level, just for us to have something, because right now we just have 3 platforms, 3 coins completely linearly. So it is not very fun to play. So let me just try to make something that is at least playable and that does feel better to play. And with that, we're gonna finish this video up. So well, here it is, the level that I've finally created. Okay, once again, I've just used the elements that we have already created, but well, I created actually something that could be part of, for example, in this case, a platformer game. Once again, probably the controls could be made better, the camera could also be better, but we do have elements. Okay, that's the key thing here. So here we are. Let's jump over here. Let's try not to fall, because if not, the game's gonna be restart. So now we have to look at this place. There we have it. There we have it. There we have it. And I believe that platform is not able to be reached, but let's try it. Okay, yes, it is. So there we have it. Okay, pretty interesting. Once again, all this world, everything here has been generated with AI, not the code, but that's something different. I believe what I wanted to say were the visuals were completely generated with Deemos. So once again, in the description down below, you're gonna be having a link to start using routing. Okay, and you already see all of these tools that I have been showcasing throughout the video. So I hope that you have sincerely enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one.